Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Stefan Gebele and today I would like to show you how to send data to Siemens MindSphere. Though the session today is separated in two parts, we will start with the theoretical part, which is dealing with the question what MindSphere is and how we have to configure it. In Chapter 3, I will give you a brief overview about the dataFEED OPC Suite, the software which we are using today to send data. This is followed by the actual live demonstration. So what is MindSphere? MindSphere is a platform, and in difference to other cloud technologies, it can operate on a cloud. Meaning that MindSphere can operate on AWS as well as on Azure. Siemens calls MindSphere as an IoT operating system, and what it does is it provides predictive maintenance and extensive analytics. The protocol which we are using today to send data to MindSphere is HTTPS, and the S stands here for the secure version of HTTP, meaning that data is encrypted. And with dataFEED OPC Suite, we can connect different PLCs to MindSphere, not only Siemens, we can also connect Rockwell, Mitsubishi, or even old PLCs like S5. So how is MindSphere configured? MindSphere consists of different parts, and this is split in assets, types, and aspects. So I start with asset. What is an asset? An asset is the digital representation of your machine, of your physical device. It could be a pump or an engine, a vehicle, or a meshing tool, even a whole production line. In my case, I have chosen a wind turbine. On the right-hand side, we can see types, which represents an undercategory of the wind turbine. So in the case of a wind turbine, this consists of different parts, like a gearbox. A wind turbine has a gearbox, it has a brake, it has also adjustable rotor blades, and of course it has a generator. And this undercategory is represented in a type. And this type again consists of different so-called aspects. So Siemens MindSphere call that aspects, and that contains my actual values. So my generator type consists of two aspects. One aspect is called environment, the other is the generation, and the generation aspect, for example, contains the produced current, the generated voltage, and also the frequency. It doesn't have to be two, it could be more, so a type can consist of more than two aspects, could be 5 or 6. This is up to the customer. So I will go quickly I will quickly explain how this is configured. So I will start with configuring the aspect. So I have to create a new aspect called environment, and I have to specify my variables, which is in my case temperature and wind strength. I will then generate a new type. I will create a new type called generator, and I have to link my aspect with the type. Once I've done that, I will create an asset called wind turbine, and inside this asset I have to do some configuration that to make it ready to receive data from my dataFEED OPC Suite. The last step what I have to do is I have to link my asset, my wind turbine asset, with the type. Unfortunately, I can't do this directly, so I have to create a so-called child asset which is based on that type, on the type generator. This sounds very theoretical. I will show you later on how this is done in the practical part. A few words about the dataFEED OPC Suite. It is a software from Softing, which you can install on your PC or on your server. And how it works is easily explained by looking at this picture. So we have a bunch of, on the left-hand side you can see different data sources. So these are the data sources where we can collect data from. For instance, we can collect data from an OPC UA server. We can collect data from PLCs from different vendors, Siemens, Rockwell, Phoenix contacts, everything is possible here. We can also read data from a SQL database or grab data from an OPC classic server. So once we have collected data, we have to decide then where we want to send that data or we want to provide that data. And this is done by the data destination section. So on the right hand side you can see the possibilities we have implemented. A possible scenario would be that we collect data from an OPC UA server and convert these data into OPC Classic or vice versa. It would be also possible that we collect data from a Rockwell PLC and say we want to save that into a SQL database. What we are doing today is we collect data from a S7 1500 from Siemens, and then we have, once we have done that, we have to configure a configuration in MindSphere and have to establish a connection between the dataFEED OPC Suite and MindSphere. This is already the end of the theoretical part. I will now start with the practical. So the first thing what I have to do is to start the dataFEED OPC Suite. As already mentioned before, the dataFEED OPC Suite is split in different sections. I'm now in the data source section where I can decide where I get data from. Could be a Siemens PLC, also Rockwell, PLCs which have implemented a Modbus protocol. This is in Phoenix Contact or Modbus. We have also the possibility to collect data from a database, from an OPC UA server, and also from a Mitsubishi PLC. So in my case, I have a Siemens PLC, so I go to Siemens and say I want to create a new data source. I click on that button and I have to specify a name. I call it Siemens 1500. What I have to do next is I have to select the appropriate application protocol. And for the S7 1500, we are using the S7-2 protocol, which allows me browsing. That means that I don't have to do a symbol import. I can browse directly the variables which are available in the PLC. I have also access to the optimized data blocks. And the best thing, I don't have to program anything. I don't have to touch the program which is running on that PLC. I have to enter, of course, the IP address, and I'm doing connection test. It says successful. I have here an option to enable some filtering, but it's not necessary here, it's optional. And as you can see, I have already all my variables here, and I haven't done a symbol import, so I can browse all the variables directly. And once again, I don't have to program anything on the Siemens side. So the first step is done. I have established a connection between the dataFEED OPC Suite and Siemens. The next step is that I have to configure the Siemens MindSphere. And this will take quite a lot of work. This is quite a lot of work. So I start here, and this is the landing page. If you have an account and you log in, you will see that landing page. And all the configuration is done in the Asset Manager. So I click on Asset Manager and wait until it's loaded. As already mentioned, the first step what I wanted to do is to create an aspect containing my variables, and then I will create a type and match them together. So I start with an aspect. I click on the aspect, and I say here create a new aspect. I have to specify a name for it, and let's call it environment. Now I have to create my variables, which are not dynamic, which are dynamic and not static. Static would mean that the variables never change, like a serial number or the dimensions of your device. Dynamic is that the data can change. So I have to add here, add variables, and I have to specify the name. I say temperature, and the data type is double unit Celsius. I want to add another variable, wind. This is, let's call it an integer, and the unit is kilometer per hour. So the first step is done, create an aspect called environment, and I have specified my variables here. The next step is I have to create a type. This is done by the type section, and here that is translated add a new type. So I have to specify a name again. We use generator as the name, and I have to do a mapping between my type and my aspect. So I click here on aspect lists, add a new aspect, and aspects can browse the aspects which I have previously created. And the name was environment. I have to check this box and add. So what I have done here is I have created a type with called generator, and I have done a mapping between the type and the aspect. Well, the first two steps are done. Now the comprehensive part starts. I have to create a new asset. So I go to the asset section, and I have to create a new asset, of course. And this asset is based on the MindConnect library. The MindConnect library, we have implemented that in the dataFEED suite, and that enables us to send data. So the asset must be of the same type, of course, otherwise we cannot connect to it. Here again to specify a name, and that is my wind turbine. This is already everything what I need to do here, and now the work starts. I have to specify here the MindConnect lib, so I have to do some configuration inside the MindConnect library. So I click on assets again, select my previously created wind turbine, and go to the MindConnect lib. I can now choose which security profile I want. I can use RSA 3072 or shared secret. The difference between them is easily explained. RSA is for high security, shared secret is for lower security. So I'm using the high security. And now I'm in the so-called onboarding process. And Siemens MindSphere call that onboarding process. And what I have to do here is to generate a new key, which is done by that button here. And all the generation with all the information which I need are in that string here, and I copy and paste that information into a file, because I need some of this information later on in the dataFEED OPC Suite configuration. So I've done this, and what I have to do next, and well, here I have to mention we can't influence the MindSphere. So this is all done by the MindSphere guys, and this has nothing to do with Dofting. So we have to create a new data source, and the data source is representing the dataFEED OPC Suite. So we get data from the dataFEED OPC Suite, and now we have to add here a new data source called dataFEED OPC Suite. Okay, I press save here. Yes, I want to. And now you can see here the configuration ID of my data source. I need this also as well for a later step, so I copy and paste that information again into my file. What I have to do next is I have to create the variables which I expect to receive. And later on I have to map the expected variables with the variables which I have already created in my aspect. So I have to specify them twice. Unfortunately, I have to do it like this, so there is no other option. This is the recommended way from Siemens. I have read this in the documentation. So I have to add a new data source and new data variables which have to be the same format, so the same name, the same type, and of course the same unit. It must be exactly the same, otherwise it's not, you can't link them. So it must be the same name, the same type, and the same unit. I have to add a new data which is print tray, and this was an integer, and the unit was kilometer per hour. So I've now created a data source called dataFEED OPC Suite, and the variables which I expect to receive from dataFEED OPC Suite are temperature and wind strength, and they have as well an ID which I need also as well in a later step. The last thing I have to do is a data mapping. I've already mentioned it. We have now to map these variables, the expected variables, with my already existing variables in the aspect. So I go to data mapping, and now it says here link variable. So I have to change that now, and you can see it's not possible. And that's why I haven't done the last step. I have mentioned it before. I know it's quite a lot of configuration here, and it seems to be quite difficult, but we have no other option. We have to create a so-called child asset, which is based on that type. So I go back to the MindConnect lib, sorry for that. I'll start from scratch here. So I'm clicking on my asset, which is wind turbine. I have it here. And now it says create child asset. And that child asset is based on my type, and my type is generator. I have to specify a name again. Let's click child generator. That's everything what I need to do here. And now I go back to my wind turbine asset. My connect lib, data mapping, and now I will be able to map the expected variables with the already existing variables. So I click here on link variable. I have to change now here a child generator, and now you can see here it's compatible with wing strength. So I can select this, press on apply, and I have to do exactly the same for the temperature value. Okay, this is everything what I need to do in MindSphere. Now I go back to the configuration of dataFEED OPC Suite. So I have already collected here data from my Siemens PLC, and now I have to specify a data destination. You can see a bunch of possibilities here. We can send data to an MQTT broker, like this is done by the other clouds like Azure or AWS. We can also provide data via OPC UA, or write that data into a SQL database or NoSQL database. Today we have data destination Siemens MindSphere. So I have to activate this and have to specify a name, connection, MindSphere. Connection is active, and now it's asking me for the tenant ID. And the tenant ID can be found in that onboarding string. It says here tenant, and it's in my case softing 1. So I have to enter this. And now it's another strange thing here. It's asking me for the MindSphere certificate, which is needed for the onboarding process. So I have to download the MindSphere certificate, and this is done via another page on MindSphere under developer.mindsphere.io, and you can also type in Siemens MindSphere certificate into Google, and you will receive, it will link you to that page. And what I need is that certificate, which is valid for Europe. For region China, please use the below one. So I have to copy that. And I have to enter this into my file, and I have to save it. MindSphere. Press on save. And now this is the dataFEED OPC Suite don't accept certificates in the TXT format, so I have to change that into a .pam file. That's okay. Okay, once I've done that, I can proceed with the configuration of the dataFEED OPC Suite. So I can now import my certificate, which is that file here. I can proceed with the next page, and it's asking me for the host name. The host name can be found in that onboarding string. Again, it is the base URL. So I have to copy it and paste it. We don't have to change the port. The configuration ID, was found by, this also can be found by creating a new data source, and it's here below that number. Authentication type was in my case RSA, so this is the authentication type for higher security, and the EAT, the initial access token, can also be found in the onboarding process. This is EAT, and I have to copy that without quotation marks. So this is the extended settings. I don't have to specify anything. Could be selecting here store and forward if I want to do it, but in that case it's not needed. So normally I should have here a connection test. Let's try again. Now it says successful, don't know why, but this sounds good. Okay, so we proceed here, and it says action name. So I have to create now the variables. I have to specify the variables which I want to send to MindSphere, and this is done by a so-called action. I can leave that as it is. It says here host name, configuration ID, and I proceed with next. When do I want to send data can be specified in this section on an item trigger change, meaning that every time the data changes in the PLC, I will send new data, or a variable trigger, meaning temperature is above 25 degrees, or a timer trigger, which I'm using here, which says I want to send data every second. So timer, create a new timer for 1 second, interval timer, and the timer is 1000 milliseconds, which is equal to 1 second. So can proceed this, advanced settings. Now I have to decide which data I want to send, and I want to send data from my Siemens 1500 data blocks in the DB5. I want to send the room temperature, and I also want to send it the sawtooth. And the last thing what I have to do is to enter here the MindSphere data point ID, and I've already copied that here. Temperature is that one. Quickly check. Okay, temperature is the above one. And the wind strength is the data below. I press on finish, and I have to start the dataFEED OPC Suite. And this is everything what I need to do on the dataFEED OPC Suite side. So now I should be able to receive that data, but that can take up to 5 minutes. I go back here to the landing page. Once again, all the configuration is done in the Asset Manager, and the visualization is done in the Fleet Manager. And so I want to see my data. Once again, nothing gets lost, but it can take up to 5 minutes until data is received by MindSphere. This has nothing to do with softing because it's already online. Here again, I can show you again. I go quickly back to the Asset Manager, and because it says here can see here that it's already connected and it's online. I don't know why it needs such a long time to receive or to receive that data. So I go back to the Fleet Manager, and I have to specify here my child asset. Go here to child asset, open that, and now I have to look. Today is the 26th, and it's around 9 o'clock. So data should be received here in that time range. In the meanwhile, I will quickly look what we have, if we have questions, and I see we have some questions. One question is, what would be the cost of this dataFEED software? If I have several gateways in which I have to install the dataFEED, what would be the cost? The best thing would be that you ask our sales department, because it depends actually which license you need. So we have different licenses, and so it's difficult to say what the price is, because I don't know which exact license you need. Is it open source or cost is involved? Yes, it is not an open source, so you have actually to buy the dataFEED OPC Suite. But what you can do is you can download a free trial version under our webpage. I will show you the name of the webpage at the end of this webinar. You can download the software, you can test it, you have a 72 hours trial version, and you can quickly check if that suits your needs. Of course, everyone who has registered will get a follow-up email containing a record of this webinar and also the presentation. And because it's quite comprehensive, you will also get a step-by-step manual how to connect and how to configure the MindSphere. You've just noticed maybe that we're now receiving data, and it says here the temperature sensor, because it's actually very, very hot in Germany today. It has 31 degrees here in my office, and the wing strength is here changing. So once again, nothing gets lost, but it takes simply some time until data is received here. Okay, so this is already the end of the practical part. So are there any questions left? I've just answered the 2 questions we've got. Additionally, you can always send me an email with your questions, and I try to give you a fast response as possible. So here once again, this is my email address, and of course the internet site, the web page of Softing, where you can download the dataFEED OPC Suite. At this point, I'd like to say thank you for your attention and your time. Keep care and goodbye.